Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. Could I first of all go through what we class as our general housekeeping? First of all, fire exits. There are two quite clearly marked on this wall here. There's another one down the end of the corridor where the lavatories are. And of course, there's the entrance door where you came in. I have no exercises or tests planned for today, so if the bell goes off, we will treat it as genuine and we will vacate the building and there will be a point to congregate in the car park. If you're unsure, then just follow this lot if you can keep up with them, because I'm sure they'll run out like the devil. Okay, next item is phones and mobile devices. Could I ask you to switch them to silent? Or switch them off if you wish. If you do continue with your phone switched on and it disturbs my meeting, there is a £10 fine to the chairman's charity. Now, it's not me as the chairman of this meeting, it's the chairman of the council who is with us today and is a member of this committee, and that's Councillor Gilbert. And his chosen charities that your £10 will be going to are... There we go. East Anglia Children's Hospice and a big C. So leave your phones on, he wants, but I don't. So it's not that I'm being a nasty non-charity collector. It's just that I want to carry on and get finished. So that's that bit. Let me just do my intros for today. On our far left-hand side, hidden up down the end there behind her screen, is Gemma Manthorpe. On my left-hand side, I have Mike Horn, who is solicitor to the council. On my right-hand side, I have my right-hand woman, Rebecca Collins. Rebecca Collins, who is my counsel, and make sure I'm in the right place at the right time. At the back, we have Chris Hobson. Wave, Chris, or stand up, wave, yeah. And in the corner, we've got Will Hornbuckle. I always get that one wrong. I got you there in the end. Good, so that's that.
No, it's not, because you haven't done Julie and Chris.
Oh, yes, sorry. I've got Julie here, who is very, very important. Well done, I'd always forget you. And at the back, we've got Chris Fitzgerald, who is our usher, and without him, you wouldn't have even got in the room. Good, okay. Presentation. When each item is raised, we have a list of people who have contacted us to let us know they wish to make representation. So you can come and sit on the right-hand side when the item is called. And the officer will give the presentation. I will then tell you your allotted times and who I want to speak. And when your time is up, you'll hear the bell. That doesn't mean that your room is ready. It means that we want you to finish. And that's finish that sentence. If that sentence rides into being 15 minutes, I promise you no one will hear you, because I have got a button on mine that will shut your microphone off. So unless you're very loud, no one will hear you anyway, and you'll know you've done. Good. I think that was it. At which point after that, the members will have theirs, and then after that, we'll take the vote. So without no further ado, we will start today's agenda. And we start with item 1, and it's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December. Do I have your authority to sign that? Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Nearly forgot to give it to you. Okay, item 2, apologies and substitutes, please, Julie.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two apologies from Councillor Roger Attwell and Councillor Sarah Taylor, and we have Councillor Keith Gilbert as substitute for Councillor Roger Attwell.
Okay, you did the same thing as I do today, getting all your words muddled up. Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest and representations received, I will take them from you when each item is raised. Number 4, chairman's announcements. I've got nothing important to tell you, so we're going to just go charging through the agenda. Item 5, we have requests to defer applications, none at all. Item 6, urgent business items, no, we have none. So with that, we're going to do number 7, which is a local plan update. Gemma Manthorpe, please, it's over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very short today. There you go. That's probably better, although I was told to say I was loud enough. Very short as said, so there's a members' workshop on the local plan on the 3rd of March. So hope to see as many of you there as possible. And the timetable for the local plan will be taken to Cabinet on the 24th of March. That's the LDS, the local plan. And that's all from me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't gather there's any questions for Gemma. No, thank you very much. So we're going, as per our agenda at the moment, so we're going to take the deferred applications, application 8A, and that's at Attleborough, which is 3PL 2023-1152 in full format. And our speakers, we've got Councillor Vera Dale on behalf of Attleborough Town Council, Sanjay Kushal, who is the applicant, Ian Hill, who is the agent, Robert Todd, and Mr. Hooper, who is a drainage consultant. If you'd like to all come sit on the right-hand side, please. Could I just tell members, Ian Hill, the agent, has got 3 minutes. Sanjay Kushal, Robert Todd, and Mr. Hooper are there for questions. So if
come in, it's fine. Don't worry about the signs.
so, I gather we've got Mr. Hill. Are you this end?
Yep.
Yep. So we've got Mr. Hill, and then the three wise monkeys. Hands. One of you got to do that. Yeah, yeah, and then Councillor Dale at the end there. Good to see you, by the way, Vera. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca Collins for this one, please.
Thanks very much, Chairman. So the application in front of you today at Attleborough is for the demolition of existing buildings on an existing part employment site, and obviously I'll show you some images of that in a minute. The erection of a C2 class care home, C2 extra care units, market housing in the form of 2 blocks of flats at the frontage of the site, otherwise known as C3, and retail units class E also at the frontage of the site, and associated works along with those pieces of development. So here is the application site outlined in red for you. So just to sort of orientate yourself, here's Attleborough Station, Banham Poultry, Station Road, and obviously the application site in red. So this is the site in relation to the settlement boundary. So hopefully members can see this, but this section at the front of the site is in the settlement boundary being the pink on your screen, the red being the application, orange. The orange being the application coloured in orange, and this yellow line cuts across. That's the extent of the settlement boundary for Attleborough, for your information. Also for members' information, we mentioned briefly the Matthew Homes planning application, the detail of which has already been approved with your application reference numbers and shown on the right-hand side of your screen. The application site is in here, in this location, and then you can see the Matthews Homes development on the other side of White Horse Lane. And it just links this slight corner with the development, and we can show you that in a bit more detail. Here's just an aerial photography of the site, just to show these frontage employment buildings that are going to be removed. There is some distinct hedgerows that run across the site and then round the boundaries of the site. And we'll talk about a bit more of that when we go through the presentation, but just there for your information. And then here is the proposed site layout. It is a full application, so all details to be considered, members. So just to run you through the site plan, and it is quite detailed. So number 1 down here, and obviously we've got detailed plans to show you in a minute, is the proposed retail units, 3 retail units. On the opposite side of the road, there are 2 blocks of flats, number 2 and number 3. These are market flats. And then moving around the site, you've got the care home, the village, the sheltered apartments, and then number 7, which is all these buildings here, all the care bungalows. And obviously we've got images of those to show you. So I mentioned at the beginning that it's partly within and partly outside of the settlement boundary, with this sort of frontage section sort of approximately here being within the current settlement boundary for Attleborough. That's relevant in terms of your principle of development. So you're considering this application against policy Gen 05 of the local plan. Policy Gen 05 does allow for development outside settlement boundaries where it doesn't impact the intrinsic beauty and character of the countryside. So if you can keep that in mind as we go through the application details, essentially your principle is, yes, we do allow development outside the settlement boundaries, but we have to have due regard to the intrinsic beauty and character of the countryside. And that is embedded within our town's policy. So to mention, obviously, and you'll see some images, the frontage of the site is currently used for employment, so it is a brownfield site, but we saw from the aerial photography earlier that the back of the site is quite, it's grassed fields, and we've got some images of that. So taking each of the application parts individually, and this is set out in the principles section of your report, we have to first consider the loss of employment. Your policy EC04 says we should avoid the loss of a policy, but sorry, I've got your disease now. Yeah, we should avoid the loss of employment unless it is weighed in the planning balance, and that's weighed against a number of factors about whether there's a need for that employment on that land, whether it's a sustainable location, and whether there's a better use of the site. So those are the things you need to consider in accordance with EC04. So the applicant has submitted some information with the application to say that the site has been vacant for approximately 6 years. And when you see some images of the buildings, you'll see that they're very run down. They haven't been in use for a number of years. And there has been some damage to those buildings where they've been left empty for that long. It's also important to consider what the proposed development will generate. And in total, the proposed development, along with employment for the retail units and for the care homes, this is post-construction, so obviously there will be employment generated from the construction of it, is approximately 88 jobs. So it will generate employment within the wider site. And when we see the images of the site, this really will tidy up, which is otherwise an untidy and not very nice looking site at the minute. And given the proximity to the station and Attleborough town centre, this is considered to be a sustainable location. So within the officer's report, members, you will note that all officers have balanced the loss of employment within that planning balance as being acceptable because of the sustainable location. It will tidy up the site, it will generate jobs. And also it will generate care, and we'll come on to that in a minute. With regards to the market residential, there are 36 flats proposed for market residential in 2 blocks at the frontage of the site. So that's number 2 and number 3 on your plan. Those blocks are between, one of the blocks is 4 stories but stepped, and one of the blocks is 3 stories in height. These are largely located within the settlement boundary. However, just the rear edge of this block 3 is located outside the settlement boundary. Obviously, the principle of development for residential within the settlement boundary is established. And also, members, you must have due regard to what is said in the supplementary report that we cannot now demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. And therefore, on that basis, we need to give weight under the tilted balance to housing also outside of settlement boundaries. So in principle, the market residential blocks at the frontage of the site are considered acceptable in principle. Moving on to the retail proposals, they're on this side of the site with parking out the front where number 1 is shown and parking out the rear. The proposals are to create 3 retail units of 622 square metres, and these will approximately provide 10 jobs. So with regards to main town uses such as retail, these should be located in town centre locations unless they do not harm the vitality and viability of the town centre, and that's set out in our own policies and the MPPF. And where retail is located in edge of centre locations, it must be well connected to the town centre. And in this regard, the applicants have carried out a sequential test and a retail impact assessment, which was prepared by Rapley's, and it demonstrates that there are no other suitable sites available within the town centre. and also that there's a need of this type of unit identified in this local area due to a lack of provision in the wider and immediate area. The applicants were also asked to consider the impact on the SU in the sustainable urban extension, which is also providing some retail element approved as part of its proposals. So the conclusions of the information that was submitted was that there was no significant adverse impact from a retail perspective, and it would not adversely impact the vitality or viability of the town centre or impact the proposed sustainable urban extension. So on that basis, given the proximity to the town, the sustainable location, and that there were no alternative sites and there is a need for retail in this location, we think that the principle of having retail is acceptable. And that is also set out in your report. So moving on to the individual proposals, there is a 60-bed care home proposed, 60 extra care apartments, and also 50 extra care bungalows and a village centre to support those proposals. And I've got obviously images of all those plans. So the local plan is quite clear and sets out that there is a need for care, not only in Breckland, but across the district. And this is supported by the district council, and also what's set out in the Attleborough neighbourhood plan, and the relevant references to that are set out in your report. The care provision is likely to generate 62 full and part-time jobs. And obviously, this is considered to be a highly sustainable location within a short walking distance to the station, and also in short walking with the town centre. And along with the proposals to provide retail, will also provide an extra level of support for people living in this location. It will also provide a wide range of care in terms of progressing, if there is a need to progress through care needs, to remain on the site in terms of individual care within the bungalows, and then moving on to greater support within the different units. And an element in care in this site would definitely help the local need that's been identified both in the local plan and the neighbourhood plan. Our policy with regards to specialist houses requires us to consider the design and scale, and this is considered acceptable, and obviously I've got some images and some more detail to show you on that. The proposals, it's important to note from the Officer report, do not include any affordable care. However, the applicants have provided a viability appraisal that has been submitted and independently assessed, and does demonstrate that it's not affordable to provide a provision of affordable care in this location. However, members, you'll see from the recommendations in the report that if granted, we have a Section 106 agreement, which includes a clawback clause, that in the event that it couldn't be demonstrated, that the viability could be demonstrated, then additional provision of affordable care would be sought. But overall, given that there's an identified need and the proposals are acceptably designed, then the proposals do gain support through policy HOW 9 of the local plan, and it is considered that the need for care in this location does outweigh the location in terms of outside the settlement boundary. And policy HOW 9 also allows for care outside settlement boundaries where it's well connected to the settlement itself. So given the proximity to the settlement and the town centre, it's considered that in principle policy HOW 9 is supported. So with regards to principle, and I appreciate there's a lot there, but there's several elements to the proposal. The majority of the market housing is located within the settlement boundary, and we cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. So that is supported in principle. The retail is located within the settlement boundary, but any harm to the vitality and viability of the town centre has been demonstrated that there isn't any harm, and therefore we consider that in principle acceptable. The care in this location does have the potential to impact the intrinsic beauty and character of the landscape setting. However, we consider that the need for care that has been demonstrated in this location, supported by our own local plan policy HOW 9 and the neighbourhood plan, outweighs any harm that there would be to the intrinsic beauty and the character of this location. And indeed, that's further weighted by the fact that this is a sustainable location, that the proposals will tidy up an otherwise untidy site, and it will also create jobs, community facilities and retail all in a sustainable location, and therefore any harm identified to the wider landscape character is considered to be outweighed by these reasons, and the principle of development is considered acceptable as set out in your report. So I'll just show you some of the other plans and then go through some of the other matters. So these are the 3 retail units to be located at the frontage of the site. And the layout there shows the larger unit, which will go right at the frontage of the site, and then 2 smaller units to follow behind. You will note the solar panels on the roof, and these are continued to other parts of the development to help with the sustainability. These are the block of flats which sits at the frontage of the site, and we do have some street scenes to show you and some concept drawings which don't entirely match these drawings but shows the vision for the site. So you'll note this is the 4-storey block, but it increases in height as you enter into the site, and it will help to frame the entrance of the site with the retail on the opposite corner. These are the internal layouts, but again, you'll note the individual balconies that have been proposed to create additional outdoor space for the people that will occupy them, and also the proposals to put solar panels on the roof. And then this is the second block of flats as you enter into the site, which is only 3 stories in height, and then moves into that wider greener area of the site. These 3 buildings at the frontage of the site have been designed to tie in with that more industrial feel, and we've got some images of the site as you enter the site. You know, a lot of the surrounding development has quite industrial materials and cladding. It is flat roofed. It is higher at the frontage of the site. Ban and Poultry is opposite for those of you that know the area, but obviously I've got some images of that. And this frontage of the site have been designed to tie in with those elements. As we move into the site, the applicants have done a lot of work looking at the Breckland design guide, looking through their design and access statement at the town centre, which combines a majority of historic buildings, but a lot of Victorian, more historic buildings become grander as you pass the station and you enter into Attleborough. They contain a significant amount of detail in terms of sills and lintels, as well as detailing within the buildings. And they include quite large gables. And the design concept, as you start to move into the site, starts to try and pull from that more status buildings that you get as you enter into the town centre to bring that over into this site. So this is the 60-bed care home. And as you can see, that encompasses that gable detail, those lintels and sills, and that red brick material, which is quite common of Attleborough's more Victorian buildings. And these are the other elevations of the care home. And the layout, a square layout around a courtyard. And then within the, in between the care home and the extra care apartments, the concept is to have a village centre, which will very much serve the community in which is going to live there. And that's to include a number of health elements to improve people's well-being and access to an improved social life. And again, that grander concept carries a lot on as you carry on this boundary of the site. And then finally, we have 33 retirement living apartments, which will be in the furthest corner of the site, and we can go back to the site plan if you need, but that concept carries on. And then the final part of the proposals at that number 7 is to infill very, very large areas of green open space, lots of landscaping, lots of planting, which was all recognised in the Breckland design guide about being positive improvements to transitioning to open countryside and understanding that wider greener area of Attleborough. Are these smaller scale bungalows, and there are a number of different designs on a sort of similar theme, still including that detailing, the solar panels, etc. Some introducing some rendering into the gables, some semi-detached properties, so there's a degree of options within the application site. So just to give you some street scenes of the site, so this is obviously right at the frontage of the site, opposite Ban and Poultry. So the entrance of the site is quite a narrow entrance to the frontage of the site. So the applicants have worked a lot on the proportions of the buildings, so as not to over-dominate what is an otherwise narrow entrance. This is across the site as you move into the site, so the access is in the middle here, with a care home at the frontage of the site and the care village at the bottom, along with the bungalows. So these are street scenes, street sections cutting through the site. And then on your street views at the top, these are the 2 blocks of flats, and then the care home, the village centre, the extra care apartments. So this is following the access straight into the site. And then obviously on the opposite side, you'll have these large areas of landscaping intersected by lots of planting, areas of open space, and very small scale development. So more of a lower scale transition as you get out to Whitehorse Lane. And again, we've got some images of that. That's very rural, but there is a lot of landscaping to the boundaries of the site. And here is what I'm talking about the landscape master plan. So you'll note from the officer report that the Highways Authority have no objections to this level of development. The level of development has meant that there is a lot of space within the site to provide quite some positive areas of landscaping and open space, building on these green corridors which already exist on the site, and ensuring that the landscaping to the edges of the site is retained and also improved. You'll note from the officer report that one of the landscape hedge strips is largely affected by the development. However, there's no objection from our landscape and tree officer on the grounds that the species that are being put back into the site at approximately a 2-for-1 planting ratio are a much improved palette of species than what already exists in the site. And obviously we've got some images of the site, and then very large areas of open space around the buildings. This isn't the exact image from this image does not exactly replicate the plans. So these were the concept drawings about where the idea was sort of born from, and the applicants have done a lot of work going on from this, designing the site. But I thought it was quite important to show these concept drawings about how you enter the frontage of the site. Oh. And then as the design developed, you can see the more detailed designs about what that frontage of the site will look like. And then the concept drawings for the care home. And then there's some photographs at the site. So these are from the very entrance to the site. So those industrial buildings which exist on the site, and you can see there's a lot of growth and a lot of damage to those buildings. And, you know, this is outside of the site, outside the gated part of the site. There's been a lot of illegal access, smashed windows, etc. And this is the neighbouring property, which sits directly adjacent to the site. And then we are panning out from the access. In the distance here, you can see a new block of flats which has gone in, and I'll talk about some comments that we've received in a minute. This is directly opposite the site, so this is part of Banham Poultry, so you can see that flat roof industrial dominated form which currently exists in this location. And then this is just looking back at the site, so the site entrance is just here in front of you. Those are those block of flats that have gone in on the frontage of the site, again building on that more industrial nature which is sort of prominent on this bit of Station Road. This is the Arms cottages opposite, and this goes down to Gamers Industrial Estate. I think I've gone back, sorry. So this is just going around the frontage of the site just to give you a view as you go round. So this is the Matthew Holmes development that has gone in just around the corner, which I showed you earlier. And then this is Whitehorse Lane. Just for members' interest, we did speak a lot to the Highways Authority, and they did not want to see an alternative access onto Whitehorse Lane. It's very narrow, so that all the traffic will be using that main point of access, and the Highways Authority have no objection to developing the site in this way on that basis. And then this is just entering into the site, so you can see in the distance those commercial buildings which will be removed. So you can see it's grassed, fairly overgrown, be fair to say, at parts. some self-seeded trees within it. And then, apologies, just in the report, this is the only open section to the site of White Horse Lane. The rest of it is heavily vegetated to the boundaries. And again, this is just looking back towards those existing commercial buildings within the site. And this is the hedgerow that will be removed, but the one behind us will be retained and integrated into the development. And again, like I say, the tree officer has no objection to the proposals. Back to the location plan. So I've talked about the design. Members, just another couple of points to note. The proposals do include sufficient open space to meet our policy with regards to open space. However, the proposals do not include any outdoor sport. And on the basis of the proposals, they're largely for the majority for care, then it's not considered appropriate use of this site to have outdoor sport in this location. And given the concerns with viability, we haven't asked for a contribution for outdoor sport elsewhere. I've spoken about the trees. With regards to amenity, there is good separation between this site and other local residential properties nearby. And given that the majority of high-scale buildings either backdrop onto the railway line, which is some distance away from those properties, and or commercial development, then we don't think there will be an issue in amenity terms in terms of overlooking, overshadowing, etc. There is a good mix of properties proposed, and they have access to their own gardens, open space and balconies. So for the future, the amenity future of future occupants, we aren't concerned. With regards to noise, the applicant submitted a noise impact assessment, which has been considered by your environmental health team. They consider the noise impact assessment appropriate and of an appropriate age, and they have no concerns with regards to noise from either the railway line, the existing employment development, or that opposite with regards to this site. With regards to odour, members will note that Bannon Poultry did raise a concern with regards to the potential for odour, and that creating new properties in close proximity to them could mean to future complaints for their business. However, you'll also note from the officer report that Bannon Poultry have recently been granted planning permission for an extension to works on their site. That planning permission includes an odour impact assessment, and the site is permitted, which together shows that if the site operates in accordance with its permit, then there wouldn't be an odour issue for future residential properties in this location. That's all been checked by your environmental health team, and they're satisfied that the development could go ahead with no objections. There is good separation from local heritage, including the station, which is a listed building, to allow development in this location, and there are no environmental impacts in terms of flood risk, contamination or ecology. You'll also note from the officer report that the Attleborough surgeries have written in raising concerns about the application, but the application through a submitted health assessment has demonstrated that proposals will actually improve access to health through having those operations come to the site. That means far less pressure on the local services, but also the whole concept is the site is to improve people's health and well-being through access for the village centre, access to open space, being able to get out and use local services and facilities due to the sustainable location. So on that basis, members, we have recommended this one for approval, subject to the conditions listed at the end of your report and a Section 106 agreement to secure the open space, maintenance of which, a GI RAMS contribution and a clawback clause for the affordable housing. And otherwise, that one's recommended for approval.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Okay, it's questions now, and it's Councillor Vera Dale of Attleborough Town Council. You have 3 minutes, please.
Good morning. Attleborough Town Council has had at least 2 presentations from the developers, which gave councillors opportunities to ask questions and make comments. The thing that was really highlighted was how it would affect the local doctor's surgery, which we all know they're stretched. We were assured that this would have no effect on the surgery. In fact, it could be helpful. So that was the only query that was brought up. The we all know that hospital bed blocking is a big thing. And and as the population is aging, there is going to get more and more need for this type of development. In Attleborough, we feel we're quite lucky because it's a really good quality, well thought out provision. There's going to be the care home, and there's going to be care units plus market housing, with all the necessary parking, amenities, open space, and a retail facility, which will not only help the site, be used for the site, but there are 2 housing estates very close within walking distance, which again would encourage people maybe to walk to it, but it could cut down on traffic going into town, which would be a bonus. Again, employment. There'll be, as it's already been said, there'll be retail employment, there'll be employment in the facility, which any employment is good. It's close to the town centre, so it's not restrictive for people getting there. It's walking distance or train distance, and hopefully in the future bus distance. So again, it ticks all those boxes. The site at the moment, as you've seen, is an eyesore. It really needs doing something with desperately. Enhance street scene. It's derelict, it's horrible. It's not a nice area to drive through. So that is a real bonus as well. Really, Rebecca has given you all the details, and we, as a town council, there's nothing that we disagree with. And just to reiterate, the town council actually thought it was a well-designed project, and the vote was unanimous to support it in any way we could. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We've got Ian Hill, please, who's the agent, and you have 3 minutes as well, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. There we go, it's gone green. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. The report provided by your officer, as well as the presentation, are very comprehensive. Accordingly, I do not wish to repeat many of the points that are already being covered. I would, however, like just to provide a bit of background information to Castle Meadow Care and a few detailed aspects in relation to the project. Castle Meadow Care are an award-winning family-owned business who provide residential, nursing and specialist dementia care in a high-quality accommodation in Norfolk and Suffolk. The company has facilities throughout Norfolk, including in Norwich, Long Stratton, Swanton Morley and Swaffham. In 2022, Castle Meadow Care won a number of awards, including the Norfolk Care Awards, the Great British Care Awards East of England, and the National Association of Care Catering Awards. The proposal seeks to bring forward care facilities which there is a proven need at all levels, including the local plan. As well as what may be termed a traditional care home, the proposals will bring forward extra care apartments and bungalows which allow people to live independently for longer whilst receiving the care and support they require. Research has demonstrated that extra care helps people retain their independence for longer, which in turn results in substantial savings for the NHS. The proposals involve an element of retail and market housing. As well as helping to create a sustainable environment, the uses will crucially help ensure the development is viable. We recognise that the development of this nature and scale will have an impact on the local community. As a result, we've engaged with the local community at all stages of the application process. A number of meetings have been held with the Town Council, as well as a public consultation event prior to the submission of the application. The benefit of this engagement is shown by the support from the proposals from the Town Council and the limited number of objections that have been received. The proposal seeks to deliver a high-quality, landscape-led development that will meet an identified local need for care on land which is in part within the settlement boundary for Attleborough and which provides, in our view, an obvious self-contained extension of the town. As well as the consultation with the community, the proposals have been arrived at following extensive consultation with statutory consultees, such as the LLFA and Norfolk County Council Highways. The applicant has taken time to ensure that the comments that have been raised by these consultees have been fully addressed. As a result, and as we've heard, there are no objections from these parties. The proposal will in part see the development of a vacant factory site. Whilst these parts of the site are located whilst those parts of the site located outside the settlement boundary will result in a change to the appearance of the site and surroundings, a comprehensive landscaping scheme will be delivered which includes the retention and enhancement where possible of hedgerows and trees and the planting of a landscape buffer along the site's boundaries. These measures will also ensure that the scheme delivers a biodiversity net gain of in excess of 30%. As we've seen from the images, Castle Meadow seeks to provide a high quality, well-designed development which is akin to the character and quality of the town. The scheme includes measures that will result in positive environmental improvements, including BREEAM Outstanding for the care home. To conclude, the proposal seeks to deliver a well-designed development that will meet an identified need for care on a site that is part previously developed land. The proposal will be brought forward by a local care provider with a proven track record of delivery in the local area. In light of the above, I hope you feel able to endorse the recommendation of your officers and support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before I put it to questions from the members, could I just ask Mr. Todd, what is your specialised? You're the architect? No one, yes, I did. So Mr. Todd's the architect, so if you're worried about cornicing or windows or what have you. Mr. Hooper is the drainage consultant for questions, and then Mr. Kusal is actually the applicant who knows all the ins and outs of the care homes. Okay, so it is open to questions from members. I'm going to start with Councillor Clark, Councillor Kybird, Councillor Bambridge.
Oh, Ian, you're on. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for the presentations to the officers and also to Councillor Dale. I've got 2 or 3 questions and observation. Excuse me. First question to Rebecca. Can you just confirm the contribution that the NHS is seeking as part of this application? Just confirm the figure. Okay, right, carry on. The other question that I've got is also to the applicants, whilst you're looking for that, Rebecca, is in terms of the sort of care facilities, it might be sort of helpful. I'm familiar with what you're planning to do there, which obviously I support, having been involved in the NHS many years ago in terms of registering care homes and setting them up and inspecting them and so for the CQC and others. If you can just talk briefly about the care as such which is being provided in terms of how that might alleviate NHS pressures. That's one issue. The other question coming back to, or observation coming back to our officer is, we've got the contribution level assessed by the NHS, but we've also got the different view expressed by the GP surgeries, and obviously we're aware in Norfolk about the pressures that general practice is under. And although this may not be a planning consideration, what I would have liked would have been, we don't normally get it from the NHS when we have a consultee response, is actually them saying how this is going to actually impact on the ground in terms of the impact in surgeries, on the list sizes, and extra demands. And obviously in some cases providers will have their own arrangement with general practice over, so people we've registered with them, so they will have their own, potentially their own private medical practitioners coming in. But that's my observation there. We don't normally get in a GP practice coming in with those observations. So although I support the application entirely, its merits, I know the size as well. I'm just raising concerns which isn't exactly a planning consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Rebecca, please.
Sorry, that took me a minute, Councillor. So 9.3 of your report is contributions and conditions. So I'm going to go over all of them because I perhaps should have done this in my presentation. At 9.4, a library's contribution has been requested of 3,600. And at 9.5, a health contribution is sought of 102,013. Neither of those contributions then appear in the developer contributions section of the report, and that's because the applicant has submitted a viability appraisal to demonstrate it's not viable to make those contributions along with the affordable housing provision. However, you know, the clawback mechanism would apply for the contributions in the same way it will apply for the affordable units. Rather than me waffling on, it would be better to hand over to Sanjay to explain, or Ian, or quite eloquently actually, about how these facilities do actually help the healthcare system rather than put pressure on it.
Thank you. Well, was
Yeah,
aimed
sure.
at yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, fine, thank you.
Okay, so it's quite sort of complex, but I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. So if you go back to the basics here, so on the side, so what we'll have is that we'll have the specialist care home. Now in the care home, what we're looking to have is specialist nursing and specialist dementia care. And when you start to look at those extra care bungalows as well, so we're looking at the sort of low level of care there. So what you really have is the concept of a care village, is where you got different levels of care that fits around the needs of our patients there. Now, normally what would happen is that if you take in a given sort of population there, so you have your senior age living there. So quite often that you find that a person of the age of between 75 and 80 years old, so they have a lot of needs of either sort of phoning for the district nurses, or they'll call out for home visits, or they visit the local GP surgery. Now, in the worst case scenarios, and so what can happen is that in the middle of the night, so they might have some chest pains, or they might fall over, so that the first thing that they do is that they will dial 999. Now, we all know what sort of pressures that the NHS is actually facing in the casualties there. So what our facility is going to be doing is that we would expect that a lot of patients who are probably out in the sort of community will probably get the opportunity to come and stay in our extra care bungalows. So what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? Well, what it basically means is that if they've got any needs there, so we will have our own specialist staff on the site. So they'll do one of two things. First is that they'll be there to actually have a much more sort of early intervention, because they will be observing them on a 24/7 basis. So that means is that they will be able to stop them almost sort of falling into a crisis. And I think one of the biggest issues now is that the NHS is now trying to say is that we have to become a lot more proactive. And that's what the care facility will be there for. So what that basically means is that you're taking away the pressure of the patients on the side of actually calling their GP, or actually calling the sort of dialing the 999. And what we do know is that a lot of our facilities is that we would expect about between 50 to 65% of the patients will come from within a 5-mile radius there. So this is why that we believe is that if anything, it will become a solution of trying to take the pressure away from the NHS and also from the primary care service. And if you start to look at the report, I think the latest one that was done was older people's housing, and they already made reference there. And their references has been is that it will cut down at least about 30% of the pressures on the local health service. And that's a very well publicized report there. And when you look at the report is categorically stating is that we need a lot more specialist housing in place, because it will help to alleviate the pressure that's going to be faced in the NHS and the primary care services over the next 10 years, where we probably expect about 30% increase over the people over the age of 65. So this is going to be one of the big solutions for the future.
Thank you. Oh, Harry, you're coming back.
Yeah, just coming back to that, thank you very much. That's always very helpful for the other members, and I'll just make the observation that I hope that the concerns that the practice in Attleborough has they put forward, aren't founded and don't prove to be substantial going forward. And I hope that the ICB and others will actually look at that. That's their view, and we just hope that wish you success, and it does have a reduction on the pressures on the NHS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kybird, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. One, what is the parking provision for the retail units? And secondly, this is a lot of building close to the rail network. Have Network Rail been engaged with and agreed the construction methods? Thank you.
58 spaces for the retail units. The nearest built development's 30 metres from the railway line. So we haven't done any direct engagement with Network Rail because of the distance away. I don't know if, I think the applicants are saying no.
That's right, but at that point it has been informed by a noise impact assessment to ensure that there is a sufficient buffer between the railway line and obviously the development, just in relation to noise.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bambridge, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually have 5 questions, if that's all right. 1 to an officer, 3 to the applicants, and 1 to the drainage expert. So, officer first, and these are all simple, and these are local member questions. You mentioned there'd be no highways access to White Horse Lane. Will there be a footpath entrance there?
Yes.
Thank you. The others are just as easy, I'm sure. To the applicants, the bungalows and apartments, will they be available for sale or rent or both?
I think that when you start to look at the viability of the scheme, so what we're looking to do is that we're looking to sell them on a long leasehold basis.
Thank you. That's sort of, I think, what I was hoping for. Second question to the applicant is, will the people from the bungalows and apartments have full access to the community facilities in the centre? Thank you. And lastly, you're talking about 62 jobs within the complex, apart from those that are involved in retail, etc. Some of those, of course, and perhaps many of them will be specialist. How many jobs will there be for the local communities?
Yeah, so what we would expect is that we expect the majority there is to be for the local community there. So we would expect to have maybe on the nursing side is that we might have about 4 or 5 sort of specialist nurses on the site. And then the remaining, what we look to do is that the customer care has its own training program as well. So what we would look to do is that we would like to sort of train up our local community there to work in our facility.
Brilliant, thank you. And for the drainage person, and I do apologise, I completely missed writing down your name. You've planned the drainage for the site. Where actually does the water go to?
So there is a plan in the FRA which would help, but broadly there is a culverted watercourse. There's an open watercourse on the western boundary of the site. That passes underneath the industrial complex and pops out opposite Banham Poultry. It then goes under Banham Poultry through a large concrete culvert, pops out the other side, and then you can see the open watercourse heading off towards the west, and ultimately it's a tributary to the River Thet.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question, but first of all, I'd like to say personally, I do know of these sort of developments across the country. I think there's one in the south of Norwich, and they do work. And with my connection through the Breckland Council with the NHS, I do know these facilities do take pressure off the NHS, and in particular, call out to the ambulance service. This developments going forward will work in with the new NHS model, which is now being written up and designed. The other thing is I just picked up on the narrow entrance. Have you got a facility there, easy access without pedestrian issues for the service vehicles, for the retail units and your own facility?
Yeah, the access has been fully designed in conjunction with Norfolk County Council Highways to ensure there is sufficient space for vehicles servicing the retail units to turn. There's a yard to allow them to access and egress the site. That's all been factored into the design.
Thank you. I didn't know if you were putting your name down, Peter, for one while there. Yes. No? Okay. Councillor Bowes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I am supportive of the concept and facilities that will be delivered here, and I have also respect the fact that Attleborough Town Council are unanimously behind the proposal. But just in relation to the flats, this is probably addressed to officers. Why do we still buy into the idea that it is a good design concept to replicate industrial buildings when building new living accommodation, just by virtue of the fact that industry is or was nearby? I feel to do so is contrary to the Breckland Design Code, but that's just my interpretation of it. Thank you.
Rebecca, please, if you'd like to answer.
I think there was lots of ways that we could approach this site. I think if we go right the way back to the pre-app and the discussions that we had, they've got a single point of access onto Station Road. The Highways Authority wouldn't allow them to have a second point of access, which sort of limits the development they could have. And also, you know, we've already talked about quite openly about the viability issues that are combined with the limiting of that development. And I think what the applicant has tried to do is balance the market element of the site with the care element, which is their principal business and the thing that they want to deliver, to get that viability, to deliver the care, which is the ultimate need. I think, you know, we could have gone, because I didn't do any designing, believe me. I think we talked a lot about the buildings, you know, the historic buildings in very close proximity to this site. So not just those Victorian gable fronted buildings, we talked about the Arms cottages opposite, we talked about the Georgian properties that as you enter Attleborough and how to approach this. I think what we talked a lot about is to get the scale of buildings on the front, if you start to introduce the gables and the pitch roofs, then you're looking at very high development because the site is very narrow at the frontage. And I think perhaps I've misrepresented it in the way I've explained it, but I think it doesn't look industrial because it still uses that red brick, but it's the cladding and it's the flat roof, which then allows for things like the solar panels. So I think there are many different ways to go around a design approach for this site. The design guide talks a lot about tying in with the local character and what the character of Station Road is, and it does talk about the mix of uses. I think it's one of those things which you're completely within your remit, members, not to like it. I think what we tried to do in many of the discussions, and that's why there's two sort of separate design approaches to the site, is balance that quantum of development with fitting in with the local area without making it too high, too oppressive, too opposing on what is quite a narrow frontage. That's what we've done. It's completely within your remit to dislike it. I'm using the word we a lot, and like I said, I didn't do any sketching. But you know, I think we need to accept that Station Road is a mixed frontage approach, and some people will really dislike the scale of buildings at a flat roof scale. But I think, you know, we've seen from the images that there is a lot of flat roof structures in this location. But I think there's a lot of interest in those buildings. There's the balconies, there'll be balcony screening, there's still lintels and sills. You know, a lot of properties that we're building at the minute don't have the detailing that the applicants have put in. They're using red brick across the site, so that will give some uniformity to it. Yeah, but I appreciate it's in your remit not to like the design approach and comment on that.
Just before I take Councillor Anscombe, following on from Councillor Bowes really, is You did mention in the presentation about the smaller apartment block that had been built a little way up and that had some controversial, was that your words? But then you never went any further. Was that because that was designed to be of an industrial appearance? You know, the sort of like 6, 8, whatever it is. No?
You're on, I'm not.
So, yeah, no, I can be on as well.
If I use the word controversial, I certainly didn't
sorry.
mean to, but I think that the design approach behind that particular block of flats was very to mimic that commercial nature. That hasn't got a flat roof, that's got a curved roof, but it's got that sort of flat, it's got a sort of a mansard setback element to it to give that flat roof appearance. So I think I felt we were carrying on that approach further down the road, but actually in an improved way, because you're tying it in with the red brick, the Victorian approach to the town. It is very much my opinion, members. You are allowed a different one.
No, I think your explanation is good, and I feel the same thing with the newer development nearer to the corner. I think that blends us back into housing, because then you've got a housing approach from the south coming to Attleborough. So I think it's quite good. I've got Councillor Anscombe and then Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for the agent. This is about car parking. If you can just alleviate some of my concerns on this. In your reply to Highways comments, you stated that the proposed car parking was below the standards set out in the parking standards for new developments, but the proposal would encourage sustainable transport options. Well, we all encourage sustainable transport options, but we have to deal with reality sometimes. Because you're allocating at least 1 space per dwelling, whereas this document states 2 spaces per 2-bed apartment. My concern is about how this would overlap into on-street parking, and we all know what congestion that causes. Are spaces allocated where you've got the apartment block? And where would visitors park? Because you actually only allocate 2 spaces. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think the majority of the development will be in accordance with the council's parking standards. There are a few units where I think it will be slightly reduced, but they all will have a space. I think that reduced provision is linked to the highly sustainable location of the site within the proximity of the town centre, as well as the station. My understanding is that all of those spaces where all of those units where you have the reduced spaces, they will be allocated a space within the residential units. I would say it's something we've worked very closely with the County Highway Authority on to ensure that that provision is sufficient to meet the needs of the development.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one point of clarification. The Town Council wasn't quite unanimous because there was one abstention from myself. I didn't want to prejudice myself in this forum, but obviously all other colleagues were in agreement. While I am here, I would just like to say that as a ward member for Attleborough, I have been quite impressed with the approach that the applicant has taken with engaging with the Town Council, and also in addition to that, ATCARE, which is the Attleborough Health and Care and Wellbeing Trust, which is a charity that was born out of the neighbourhood plan steering groups, and actually they're not a statutory consultee, but they've done a magnificent amount of work in relation to healthcare in Attleborough and what our demand is, and facilitating reports and everything else. And actually, although they didn't need to, I do know that the applicant has engaged them as well to make sure that the scheme that they are bringing forward really is to the benefit of the community, and to make sure that it does address the needs that Attleborough has. So just while I'm here, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I need to say to the applicant is thank you.
You've brought here a scheme which is a fantastic scheme. Any scheme that takes the pressure off the NHS is fantastic. The way it's been designed, congratulations to the architects, because I think you made a wonderful job of it. Yes, I understand where my colleague is with design, but we'd all like thatched cottages with roses round them, but that we don't live in that world. We have to live in the real world. So all I need to say is thank you very much, and I say 10 out of 10 for everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all questions are, I hope, asked. So we are going to take the vote. So on this item at Attleborough, 3PL 2023-1152, this is in full format. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Okay, this item is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor. We're going to take a short break and start again at 11:15. And with that one, we will have Billingford will be our next item. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when the men's shed have finished, we'll make a start. I think they've been making bird boxes. They were so engrossed there. Okay, so back to our agenda. We're going to take item 9A at Billingford, which is 3PL 2024 0813 VAR. It's a variation at Billingford. So could I have, sitting on my right-hand side, could I have Councillor Keith Crudgington of Billingford Parish Council, and also Councillor Andy Cutcher, if you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, gentlemen. Keith Owen, Mr. Smith and Mr. Walker, who are all supporters, and Claire Brahimi. Brahimi? Yes, oh, thank you. Who is the applicant? If you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, you come right up this end, my dear, and you'll be right on, well, that one there. You'll be on the one that says applicant. Oh, I see, and the rest of my other men's shed. Good.
Can I make a statement, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. When I spoke on the last application, I spoke and I said concern.
Is your microphone
Oh,
on?
sorry, I apologise. Could you hear what I said? No? Okay. When I spoke in the last application, I spoke as a concerned councillor. This time I'm going to speak as a member of the planning committee, if I speak at all, depending on what's said. I have to say, as ward member for Billingford, I have received a number of emails, telephone calls and local supplications, as it were, to me. I believe that these are matters that are rightly raised with a ward member, and I don't believe that they have affected my ability to make a decision according to what we hear here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll go over to the presentation, and that's Will, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is application PL 2024-0813 VAR at Burfield Bintry Road, Billingford, for the variation of condition 2 on planning permission 3PL 2017-1613F for the amended access, passing bay, location and associated drainage. And this application is before you due to enforcement action on the site. This is a location plan of the site as seen in the 2017 planning permission. This is the site in the wider context, so Bintry Road just to the east with St. Peter Church further south. This is the proposed flood flow path diversion works and associated drainage, associated highways access improvements plan. As mentioned, this application seeks a variation to the approved plans on the 2017 permission for the consent of a dwelling by amending the access, passing bay and associated drainage. Norfolk County Council Highways were consulted as part of the application, and it is understood from their response that discussions were held with the Highways Authority prior to the submission in order to inform the proposal and plans produced as part of the submission. The Highways Officer has confirmed that the plans would meet highway standards and requirements for the off-site works contained in the plan. And as confirmed by the Highways Officer, the off-site highway works are to be supervised by Norfolk County Council and that it will be necessary for the applicant to apply separately for a vehicle access application with the Highways Authority once consent is secured. And an informative note has therefore been added to the decision notice in this regard. Norfolk County Council Highways supports the application, raising no objections, subject to the inclusion of appropriately worded conditions as detailed in their response dated 13th of November 2024. And taking into account of the above, the proposal is considered to have appropriate regard to policy TRO2 of the Breckland Local Plan and Section 9 of the NPPF 2024. In respect of the drainage element of the application, a conveyance swale is proposed in the southeastern part of the site, connecting from east to west into the existing ordinary watercourse on the site. The swale is 50 metres in length designed to move and collect water through its shallow grassed or vegetated channel. The site falls within the Internal Drainage Board, or IDD, of the Norfolk Rivers Internal Drainage Board, the IDB, and the IDB are therefore the relevant land drainage authority and were consulted on the application. And it's noted in their response that the IDB raised no objections to the proposal, with their comments as follows. So the site is within the Internal Drainage District and the Norfolk Rivers Internal Drainage Board, and therefore the board's bylaws apply. The board's officers have reviewed the documents submitted in support of the planning application and have no objection to the application. The drawing plan titled Proposed Flood Flow Path, Diversion Works and Associated Access Highway Improvements has been produced following discussions with the board's officers, who are supportive of the proposals. No objections have been raised by the relevant drainage authority, the IDB, and it is considered the proposal would regulise this section of the flow from the east, as well as the previously approved and implemented 2017 planning permission, having appropriate regard to policy EMB09 of the Breckland Local Plan and section 14 of the MPPF. So just a couple of site photos of the site as you looking into the access. And as well looking back into the access from the road with the site in the distance. Swan balance, the amendment to vary condition 2 attached to permission 3PL 2017-1613F is considered acceptable, and the proposal is considered to have due regard to all relevant policies of the Breckland Local Plan 2023 and MPPF 2024, and it is therefore accordingly recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I've got in attendance for questions only from Billingford Parish Council, got Councillor Keith Crudgington and Councillor Andy Cutcher. But at the moment, I've got 3 supporters, Keith Owen, Mr. Smith and Mr. Walker, and you're having 1 minute each. So if we'd start with Keith, is Keith Owen going first? Yes? Yes. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute, sir.
Right, I'd just like to thank the chairman and the members. But I think we need to bring to the attention of the members that this saga's been going on for over 5 years. The original drainage report, as brought up or paid for by the applicant, has not been put in. They've refused to put this drainage in, which has affected the water tables of us 3 neighbours. It's long and complicated. We've been trying to get enforcement to look at this for 5 years, which they've refused. And without the help of Gordon Bainbridge and our local MP, this would have been brushed under the carpet. So to cut a long story short, the applicant deliberately has not put this drainage scheme in. She has taken action to block all the road grips, all the natural entry points of surrounding field water and road water onto that land that's been a natural draining point for however many years, and put a large earth bund running the whole length of Bintry Road. So she has literally diverted all of the drainage water, which has affected our neighbours. So all I would ask is we approve this consent, but would ask the members to put a time limit, because we don't want to be in 5 years' time in the same situation as we are now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Mr. Smith, please.
I concur the same.
If I could ask you to turn yours off and you to turn yours.
Sorry, is that better? Yeah. I concur the same. We've been here before. If it wasn't for Mr. Owen, his persistence, we wouldn't be here today. And he's brought it back, and we're talking about it again, but we need to resolve it. We need to finish, so we support it because it's just a repeat of the 2017, effectively. And why didn't it get done? It should have been done then.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker, please.
Yes, thank you. I concur with both my colleagues here beside of me. We are neighbours and we're fed up of it's gone on too long and we're still getting land which is now flooded. That's it really.
Okay.
Yep.
Lovely, thank you very much. Then I've got Claire Brahimi, who is the applicant, please. 3 minutes. You need to switch your microphone on before I start. You're away.
Before my build began, I was given notice disallowing the original by the highway agents. The directives were followed and the authority notice given for the currently installed scheme. Whilst I have entered the variation in question today, it was done with the pressing sides held against me. However, I would like to set today and see this as a positive open meeting for the best way forward for and with the community, remembering the drainage system is a collective responsibility and the weather is an unknown quantity. There are other elsewhere areas to the village drainage system that require maintenance and added updated improvements. The variation design introduces a non-permeable hard road surface vehicle passing bay, which highways have insisted upon to fit into the low-lying single-track Green Virgin Hedge-line Bintry Road. In essence, this space, I believe, would become a busy crossroads and a blind spot turning area. Although it must be said, the passing bay has been designed here to lend access for the road's rainwaters to aid the variation scheme. It was brought to my attention the concern that the variation passing bay would create an increase of speed and volume with road vehicle users. It is my concern too. Therefore, I hope every critical aspect has been observed by the team of experts and the committee panel for the high consideration of residents, pedestrians and vehicle users alike for their safety and well-being. I understand Norfolk endured the past 2 wettest winters ever recorded in history, and having observed the Bintry Road not flooding at this time leaves me openly to express today the other option is to leave the currently installed scheme in place, and as suggested before with the added measures, whilst we still have that opportunity. I am glad and thank the panel before me to make the responsible final authoritative decision. I would like to start again just to say why I have the time. Before my build began, I was giving notice disallowing the original planning applications drainage scheme by the highway agency. The directives were followed and the authority notice given for the currently installed scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a glass of water. Have a drink. It'll make you feel better. Okay, I'm going to hand over to our solicitor for guidance before we carry on. Thank you.
I understand that there is a lot of history to this matter and that there is, in planning terms, quite a lot of emotion behind what has happened over those years. But I think I need to clarify. This is a technical application in which all the parties agree, including most importantly the technical parties, that this is an application that should be given approval. I really don't think that this is the forum to go into the history of this matter. Let's just consider the planning merits, which appear to me to be perfectly straightforward, and everybody is in agreement. So I would suggest we leave it at that for now, here.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put it to questions in case anybody does have one, but I'd like to start by asking the officer, there was from the 3 gentlemen about putting a time limitation on that. Is that possible? Thank you.
We've had a look at the conditions, and condition 13, which is the highways works, doesn't have a trigger in it, and it should have a trigger in it. Sorry, I just skipped off it a minute because I was looking at something else. So we would suggest condition 13, which says the off-site highway improvement works as shown on the drawing, and then there's a reference, shall be completed to the written satisfaction of the local planning authority. That needs a trigger in it. So we suggest that it should say the off-site highway improvement works as shown on drawing shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority within 3 months of the date of this permission, and completed to the written satisfactory of the local planning authority within a timescale set out in that submitted information. So yeah, condition 13 should definitely have a trigger in it for the works. That is the only thing element we would propose to update. Just to be really, really clear, we cannot enforce the applicant to implement the planning permission. So we can't put a date on it for her to complete the planning permission, only a date for her to start the works. And that is incremental in planning legislation.
Okay, any questions from members? Councillor Bambridge and Councillor Plummer.
Yes, and I did hear what was said earlier. I will just say that in my various letters and emails, the matter of a time limit has been requested by several sides of this discussion. And secondly, that there certainly are other elements which we probably cannot settle here. And I am happy to take them forward through other forums, and I will speak to all of the members of the debate before I do that, and I will therefore vote today according to how I'm indicated, without those matters being raised.
Thank you. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask the officer, the lady said, and I quote, that the original drainage application was refused. Is this new one the same as that one, or is this a new drainage scheme? And the other question is, I see in a letter representation here that Breckland Planning have forced this application. Is that true?
I don't want to go, well, I can't go into because I don't know the details of the enforcement issue. So whether it was forced or not, well, one, we couldn't force an application, but we can certainly request one. But I'm not aware that that is the situation, but I wouldn't need to be aware that that is the situation, to be very clear. I think with regards to the drainage, what is important is the drainage strategy that's proposed within the application. We've consulted the relevant IDB. They have come back with no objections to that as a solution. In the background, we were just checking the conditions again, and the plan showing the drainage condition is conditioned, so we are covered. But what I would like to propose, Chairman, is a second condition that makes it explicit that those drainage works have to be in accordance with those submitted plans, which is what's been signed off by the IDB. So with members' permission, I would like to do that also. But I can't tell you the difference with the drainage strategy, but what I can tell you is this latest strategy has been signed off by the IDB as an acceptable means to drain this site.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take the vote. This is item 9A, 3PL 2024-0813 as a variation. Billingford, and your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? Subject to the conditions. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. Okay, you can leave. I'm sure the Billingford boy band needs some practice. Yeah, I know. I was going to say something to you. Okay, folks, we're moving swiftly on. We're going to do item 9B at Swaffham, 3PL 2023-0154F. And also included in that is item 9C, 3PL 2023-0110F. I believe we will probably be taking two votes on this. So, Councillor Anscombe.
Thank you, Chairman. I declared interest in the next two items for Swaffham. Previously, as Town Councillor, I was involved in the sale of the land to ILG, so I will leave the room for the next two items. Thank you.
Well, we only have one item after that. Would you like to stay for that, or are you going to leave anyway? Sorry? Well, yeah, there is that to it. If you're out there, you're out there. If you're gone, we won't cry. Okay, I promise. But I will warn you, there's no food out there.
And then share.
Oh, you're going to come back anyway. Right, okay, fine. Okay, over to you, please, Chris.
We're just having a technological moment.
Yeah, apologies, members. Just bear with me while I sort the presentation.
Well, if you can't do it, we'll all jump in the chair and do Thetford.
Share.
Share.
No windows.
That's the one. Here we go. Thank you, Chairman. We'll be there in a moment. From the beginning.
That'll make the full screen. And you can minimise that if it's in your way.
That's all right. Here we go. Yeah. There we are. Apologies. Good morning, members. So some members may recall this site. It was heard back in October 22nd last year, resolved to approve. So, yeah, as the Chairman mentioned, we've got two items here, 9B and C. They are two separate applications, so we do need two separate resolutions on them. So first up, we're moving to Swaffham, land east of Newspool Road in Swaffham. So we've got a full application. I'll discuss in a moment on why it's before you, but we've got a full application for residential development for 51 units, associated access, parking, landscaping and drainage works. Before I go on to the site in more detail, so you'll see from the report, what we're here today is to make a correction and clarification to the Section 106 agreement and the financial contribution with respect to local health infrastructure. So just bring you back to the site and the application. So we're actually dealing with an allocated site in the local plan. The site is there, allocated for 51 units. We're located in the settlement boundary of Swaffham. We'll just run through a high level for you. So as mentioned, it's an allocated housing site. It previously had outline permission for 56 units, which has now lapsed. We can see that A11 running to the north, the A1065 over here, and then Newspool Road junction here, and the application site here. Residential area in the site sits here with a mixture of residential properties, single story, 2 stories southeast, predominantly single stories over here, and a mix of 2 stories, single stories further south. There's the site in more detail. So Tumblers Hill runs to the southeast. We've got a footpath network which runs along due east of the site, footpath 64A, Newspool Road immediately to the west here, new access proposed in this area here. So aerial view for you, clearly an open site here, a greenfield site. This is the main site here. We have the adjoining phase 2 as the next item coming off here. See open fields around, but this site here is also allocated with a previous consent for housing wrapping to the north between the site and the A11.
So just touching on the proposals, as mentioned, it's a full application which has had resolution to approve, subject to Section 106 agreement, securing a variety of planning obligations I'll run through in a minute, conditions and a resolution that any amendments to the application and scheme is delegated to the head of planning. Just a quick summary on the actual scheme itself. 51 units as mentioned, a mixture of 1 and 4 beds. The application is for 100% affordable housing scheme, so being the applicant being Flagship. As mentioned, we've got a phase 2 here coming on the site, coming down from the new estate road south. That's a market scheme of 5 single-storey houses, so we've got 2 beds there. There's a mixture of 1 to 4 beds across this whole site here, and you've got a mixture, looking at it, of 31 affordable rented units and 20 shared ownership. As I say, we've got a mixture of dwellings, 12 single bed, 28 2 beds, 8 3 beds, and 4 beds. Quickly run through those dwelling and house types. So those are the two-storey, 2-bed units. We've got a mixture of predominantly red brick with render and tiles. I'll skip through that one. So the design has been considered previously, but yeah, just run through the scheme for you. So there, again, the 2 beds, 3 beds, so the 2-storey units, some more 3 beds. Showing the elevations, we've got a cluster of 3 units here. So in terms of the site, I'll quickly run through those. So we've got the site sitting behind the single-storey dwelling here. As mentioned, we've got a separate application, item 9C, single-storey units coming here. But this site sits in the distance here. We've got, see the mixture of dwellings here, got 2 stories, single stories beyond, see 2 stories on that side of Newsport Road. And they're the single-storey units that sit opposite the site on Newsport Road. The site sits on our right. That's the context and site itself. So as mentioned, it's a greenfield site. We've got vegetation on site itself, so kind of hedgerows beyond, so it gives you a bit of a context of the site. Hedgerows, we'll come on to in a moment, border the site. This is the site frontage, so part of the scheme sought to ensure that removal of these were limited, so we've got a single access point with discussion in the main report previously, as we can see here, access about here with displays along here, ensuring that there is loss for the access, but is limited with a footpath beyond on the other side of the hedgerow. And this is that mention of the network here in terms of the footpath. We've got a good network here. Immediately to the east of the site, links to the town centre. Let's go back to the site itself. So, yeah, so that was a bit of a quick trot through the scheme itself and the site. So in terms of why we're here today, as mentioned at the start, we've got an update in terms of the Section 106 agreement. Now it became clear in the drafting of the 106 agreement that actually the figures used and reported in the committee report in October reflected a greater contribution that had been agreed with the applicants and officers. Now, in terms of the financial contribution, that is to, as you'll see in the report, to mitigate the impacts in the local area, particularly with respect to improvements and extra space at the camping land surgery in Swaffham, whether that's extensions, improvements, or a new build facility. But the contribution is £64,325. The greater figure that was in the report did include a contribution to the ambulance service. Now, as you'll see from the report, officers' views are that that contribution does not meet the relevant tests in the MPPF. So, as you'll see, there is a requirement that directly related to the scheme and development itself. Now, in that case, where the NHS had sought a contribution towards equipment and training and ambulance recruitment, that's officers' views that because of the test, you can't directly relate those aspects, and that was sought to this scheme for obvious reason, that, in relation to the ambulance service and where it is. Also, there's an existing facility within the town, a short distance due west of the site on the A1065 that provides an ambulance station facility in the town already. So that's the reason that we're actually securing a contribution towards the health facility that's already in the town, the Camping Land Surgery, but not in terms of ambulance facilities. You'll also see from the main report there's a number of other we've got contributions sort of obviously the open space that's being delivered on site. There's a children's play facility being delivered on the main site, off-site sports contribution, education contribution for special educational needs, library services, bus service contribution, and Norfolk GRAMS per unit contribution. So that's the package of obligations that are being secured. Obviously, the scheme is 100% affordable. We're also securing the policy compliant affordable level on site as well. So that's a bit of a run through the obligations that are now in the draft Section 106 agreement. Obviously, since the resolution in October, we've also had the updated MPPF that was issued in December, and also the updated housing method, standard housing method for housing. Rebecca's previously mentioned the earlier items about the impact that's had on the 5-year housing land supply position of the council, and having regard to that change, as you'll see in the report, that doesn't have any significant impacts on the scheme in terms of the balancing exercise in its compliance with the local plan, Swaffham neighbourhood plan and the MPPF. The proposals remain in accordance with the policies within that, within those local and national plan documents. In terms of other aspects, there's no significant changes or changes to the scheme other than those as set out just now. Clearly, it would deliver housing on an allocated site in a sustainable location in a town allocated for growth. There's above policy level of affordable housing being provided by a registered provider, Flagship Homes. As I mentioned, it delivers on-site play and open space. There's no significant harm been identified to residential amenity, and impacts on highways and transport can be mitigated by condition. In addition, the main report also highlights that in terms of foul and surface water drainage, conditions can ensure appropriate schemes to provide those additional facilities and services. You'll see, again, in the main report that ecological impacts would be mitigated for and ecology enhanced through conditions requiring enhancements on site. And as mentioned in the main report, the council's able to ensure that the habitat sites in Norfolk and Breckland are the qualifying features and are maintained through the Norfolk GRAMS and a contribution for that. In summary, the application remains recommended for approval. It's in line with the Breckland local plan, Swaffham neighbourhood plan, and the MPPF as updated in December 2024. So an updated resolution is sought, seeking approval subject to those conditions listed in the report pack, those obligations as set out in the main report and just gone through then. And of course, as previously, any amendments to the scheme itself being delegated to the head of planning. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions at all from members? Oh, Councillor Plummer. Chris, you're on.
Nope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an unusual question. When the contributions are due, what part of the build is it? Is it the start of the build, halfway through the build, or at the end of the build, please?
They're often phased depending on the contribution. So, for instance, affordable housing, depending on the scheme itself, there'll be certain amount up front, possibly 25%, 50%. In terms of the health contribution, we have got the draft section 106. I haven't got it up here, but it's something I can ask, and if it's relevant, bear with me. But we wouldn't want the health contribution to be so late, i.e. end of completion or 80, 90%, that makes it difficult for us to then enforce, for obvious reasons, that too late on, it's difficult to then enforce to get that money. So, yeah, I can come back with the exact percentage figure, but it's certainly before those endpoints.
Okay, thanks. No further questions. Okay, with this item, we're going to take two votes on this, item 9B, which is 3PL 2023-0154 in full format at Swaffham. Your officer's recommendation is approval. Have a show of hands, please. That's unanimous, thank you. And 9C, which is 3PL 2023-0110, again in full format in Swaffham, and your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? And that's all done. Thank you very much. Well, there were no speakers, so they can go anyway. Chris, could you just give Judy a prod out there and wake her up until I come back in? And our next item will be item 9D, which is 3PL 2024-0916 FMNIN. It's a good one. And that's at Thetford, which is Poocher's Yard. And that's Will. I didn't realise we were still hanging on to Will. We could have let him go. But never mind. You're here now, Will. We've just got Judy Anscombe coming back in. And then we'll start. Just 1 sec, Will. Just one moment. Here she comes. Well done. We're on 9D at Thetford now, Judy. Thank you.
Last one.
Will, it's over to you.
Thank you. This is a full application at 1 Telford Way, Thetford, for the change of use from sui generis to provide a doggy daycare, retail, grooming facility and outdoor area to sui generis to provide doggy daycare, retail, grooming facility, outdoor area and dog hotel or internal kenneling. And the context, consent was granted in November 2023 as per the description of development, and this application is now looking to offer the internal kenneling, and this application has been brought to committee given Breckland Council own the property. This is a location plan of the site adjacent to the A1066 along Telford Way industrial estate. And this is the site in relation to the settlement boundary. So the site falls within the Thetford settlement boundary and also within an area allocated as a general employment area. This is the site in the wider context. And this is the site plan actually taken from the previously approved application, with this application only relating to the change of use in order to provide the internal kenneling for its customers. And these are floor plans of the site. Appreciate not the easiest to see on the screen, but the plan on the left is taken from the consent granted in November 2023. And the one on the right is for this current application. You'll note the only difference is that area sort of towards the left for the internal kenneling. And then there's some photos of the site. So this is on Munford Road looking towards the site. This is the front elevation. So the principle of development is considered acceptable having regard to policy ECO3 of the Breckland local plan, as well as the previous and implemented consent, which is a material consideration. No external alterations are proposed as part of the dog hotel. This area is currently occupied by various commercial buildings and uses within the general employment area, and is considered the immediate and surrounding area would not suffer visually as a result of the proposed addition of the internal kenneling. The Council's environmental health team raised no objection to the proposal and subject to conditions relating and the conditions relating to the opening hours, maximum number of dogs and noise management plan have been reimposed on this consent. And lastly, no objections have been raised by Norfolk County Council Highways. So in terms of the overall planning balance, the proposal is considered to be acceptable in planning terms, having regard to the above policies mentioned, and is accordingly recommended for approval, subject to the conditions stated within the report. Thank you.
It's open to questions from members. Councillor Bambridge.
Just a simple question. Is this place already in existence? I think it is.
The
Sorry,
building
I
is,
just
and
seem to have seen social media of
We've
it.
given it permission, but it's the internal fitting out of overnight.
Thank you.
What?
That was
What?
said.
Hang on.
That was
What?
said, and I didn't gotten
I
to it.
wondered where you were going with that.
Oh.
But you got to the overnight bit. Apologies.
Okay. Blimey. Okay.
Apologies, I am
No,
sorry.
you're okay. You're okay. Just stick your hand up my back and then I'll be able to do. Okay, Councillor Kybird.
How does the overnight bit tie in with the actual hours of operation? Are they going to be left there on their own, the dogs?
Is there someone in attendance?
No, but the condition is hours of operation, 7:30 to 6:30. So, oh no, that's customers on the premises. All right.
Just to be really clear, yeah, the operation is for the operation of the daycare, and then there will be dogs there overnight, and they will have a member of staff with them overnight. Read stories, tuck them in.
And the member of staff is a cat. Right, Councillor Plummer, please.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stop laughing first. I do understand, if I remember rightly, there are no residential houses anywhere close to it.
No, it's answered that.
Thank you.
On the industrial area. Okay, we're going to take the vote. I'm fed up with silly questions. 9D is 3PL 2024-0916 in full format as a minor, hence the MIN, at Thetford, and your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Can I have a show of hands, please? Woof, woof. Good, good. Right, put your paws down. Okay, that's approved. Thank you very much. That was the word you were looking for. Right, okay. Item 10 on your agenda is applications determined by the Deputy Chief Executive, and those are there for your information. And also item 11 is the appeals summary, also there for your information, at which point I say thank you very much for your attendance. Councillor Kybird.
I note on the appeals summary that there was a item in Thetford where somebody had installed an air conditioning unit in a position that's not allowed, and the appeal was disallowed, which is correct. But how on earth did the installers come? If they're responsible installers, they should know they shouldn't put anything within 1 metre of the boundary.
Well, I am not expecting anyone to comment on that because they're not in full knowledge of it, and it's not as a presented item today. I'm just saying it's there for your information, which I started with, and so I'm not prepared to let any of my officers discuss it with you and hang themselves. But thank you anyway, and with that I close this meeting.